Yes, this is rife with concerns. And I believe in what I know about it. I've talked to two close advisors about this who are also creatives. To me, it's never going to replace the human touch.
Dr. Jamie Marich, welcome back to the Art and Science of EMDR. Thanks for joining us.
I'm glad to be here today. Getting a little edgy with this webinar, but thank you as always for hosting us to talk about some edgy things.
Yeah, I love Edge and I love your vibe. And I really, really am interested in hearing how we can use AI for therapy in general. And, we're going to talk about mapping systems today. But I want to start, Jamie, talking a little bit about, take a step back and talk about AI. And, a lot of people talking about AI and the end of the world. AI will take our jobs, AI and, intellectual property. There's so many things to talk about. So I just want to hear a little bit of your thoughts about that.
And admittedly, friend, I have a lot of these concerns too, to the point where I'm kind of shocked I'm sitting here doing this workshop. And in a year's time, I may regret having done this workshop, because as somebody who is an artist as well as a therapist, I'm a performing artist, musical artist. As I'm going to talk about here, I do a lot of visual art, but I'm not somebody who can draw what I would consider like actual images with any level of competency. Like, I can do a lot of splashes and abstract expressions on a canvas. I have dabbled in photography, filmmaking. I believe a lot in art as expression, but if I was given the prompt, Jamie, draw a picture of how you see your 4-year-old part inside of you right now, I don't have that level of artistic skill to literally do that, right? So, as an artist, I've been having conversations with some people who are very close to me about, like, is it ethical to use AI to help us generate art, especially because there's some concern about how a lot of the AI programs that are out there use the whole internet, which can include other artists' work to learn patterns and learn programs. I know therapists have a lot of concerns about AI being enrolled in the therapy process, especially over a lot of these chat platforms. And as somebody who specializes in dissociative disorders and who has lived experience ourselves, if you try engaging a lot of these AI platforms in any conversation about dissociation, they're still operating from the myths and the misinformation, etc.
Yeah, AI has so large language models like ChatGPT have what the professional call hallucinations. And this is not a therapy term, this is a computer science term. So they're just coming up with random information. So you can ask, a random question. Tell me about Dr. Jamie Marich, and it can tell you that you're, I don't know, a doctor of neuroscience from Australia or something. Just and it sometimes does that. And is that a concern?
Yeah, I think, yes, this is rife with concerns. And I believe in what I know about it. I've talked to two close advisors about this who are also creatives. To me, it's never going to replace the human touch. And I think that's something we really have to emphasize. And even when I show you some of what myself and other systems are doing here with using AI to map our internal world, I'm also going to talk about ways I've considered, and then how can I end up still patronizing artists in addition to what we're doing with artificial intelligence or AI. But I will say, Rotem, we can have the big long discussion about the ethics of this, the conspiracy theories of this. But I'm also, again, going from my two big artistic advisors who have told me, and Garrett, one of them, is that AI is here, whether we like it or not. And I think a big question is, are we going to acknowledge that and assist our clients to use it in a way that's going to be the healthiest possible way for them if our clients are already dabbling with it? And this may be beyond where some of you are at with your thinking on it, but can we learn to work with it? And again, my feelings on this have been very mixed until something happened to me earlier this year, which is why I even decided to run this as a workshop. And I've run this as an exploratory workshop for a small community of plural EMDR therapists that I work with. And this is the first time I'm even venturing into doing it in a larger EMDR space.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think that AI is here to stay, regardless of how we feel about it. It's here to stay. And I think we need to be very careful of which AI tools we use and how we use them. So I was approached by someone on LinkedIn that has a new platform, and basically it does the notes for you. So one option is to dictate your notes. So, do a text to speech. The other one, and for this one, you need client permission, which I don't think I'll ever do, but it basically listens throughout the whole session and then creates the note for you. So you don't need to write a note. It creates a perfect note for you. That's a little concerning to me.
Yeah. And yeah, I think part of the discernment we have to develop as therapists, as artists, is looking at, like, where does this feel concerning? Where does it feel helpful? Because I'm thinking of a good friend of mine in the plural community who is visually impaired. And they have shown me what AI has helped them to do with being able, like, there's an app called Be My Eyes that they use to be able to look at images online, to be able to help them a little more in the world. And, they have explained to me how AI has really emphasized the potential of that, because they're able to actually have a conversation with, well, can you tell me a little more detail about this picture? And I think it's still important that we as creators do things like alt text and consider how people with disabilities or impairments may need that extra assist in engaging with media that we take for granted. But even when I do captions for my EMDR training using Otter, we use AI for that. And so, yes, I have a lot of feelings. And I think part of the discussion that I want us to be able to have go forward as therapists is the discernment about, where is this really, it's kind of like EMDR. Is it adaptive? Is it maladaptive? Is it both, depending on the context?
Yeah. First, we're going to see what you have to present, how you do. I'm really curious because I haven't seen it yet. We talked about it, but I haven't seen it. So how do you want to start, Jamie? Do you want to talk about just mapping systems in general?
I have visuals. I have visuals. I'm going to share with you some of what happened. So for those of you not familiar with me, we have a couple different introductions. Professionally, we're Dr. Jamie Marich. Personally, we use the moniker Jamie Plus. We also this year have taken to using the name the Unicorn System. We are a system with dissociative identities. That's kind of what we're known for in the EMDR space at this point. Having this willingness to share from our lived experience about being a person with dissociative identities in these EMDR spaces where there's still a lot of fear and misinformation about what it means to be a dissociative system. So we're a dissociative system, and a major part of that is being this professional who was invited into these spaces because of our professional credentials. Yet we're really speaking to you today, still informed by some of that, but largely as a person who has received a lot of EMDR therapy herself, dating back to 2004 when we were first referred for EMDR, and we had our first major round of it there between 2004 and 2006. And then, we had some off and on therapeutic engagement over the years, and then we re-entered EMDR therapy in 2016 after having a pretty significantly horrible year that led us back into EMDR therapy with an art therapist who also knew dissociation very well. And so throughout our engagement, we saw each other pretty intensively in 2016, 2017. And I have still stayed followed up with the same therapist, largely doing online work since then, as we need it, because I really feel that to be a good therapist, you have to have a good therapist or have some foot in the healing world to constantly be looking at your stuff. If that's not professional therapy, hopefully you have some other practice that helps you stay tethered and anchored and working on yourself. And I'm fortunate to have been able to still work with my therapist. And we do a lot of visual artwork. As I said, she is a visual artist, therapist, photographer, fine artist. And so when I've seen her both in person and online, it's very common for me to share my visual journal with her. We've painted together. We've done a lot of the expressive arts together. And it's really forwarded what we've been able to do in EMDR therapy. And it has also facilitated us to be able to have a good in-between session container. So if things come up for us in between sessions, go to our visual journal. Sometimes we film make on it. If we, have that line, processing may continue after the session ends, our visual arts practices, our expressive arts practices help us to do that. So I want to give you that just so you have some context, that working with the expressive arts is just a natural part of who we are as a human. And I've written books on expressive arts therapy as well, Process Not Perfection, most notably. And something I share in there, and I wrote this in 2019, is I have a very broad definition of what is meant by expressive arts, because we often think of visual art, painting, drawing, dance movement, making music, listening to music, drama, kind of as the major ones. But to me, filmmaking, cooking, hair design, makeup design, gardening, these are all expressive arts. And this work has really made me consider, even though there's some ethical stuff we're trying to sort out with AI, is this also an area of potential expressive art that can be used with this technological assist? So I want to start by showing you a picture. And I'm going to give us a few seconds, well, maybe better part of a minute here to just take this in visually. As we might say as EMDR therapists, notice what you notice. And if there are any words, phrases coming up for you, you're certainly free to put that in chat. I'll tell you what this picture is in a second, but I want to give you a little time.
I think I have a guess.
Go ahead, Rotem.
Is that your 4-year-old part?
That is my 4-year-old part. Yes, very much. Yeah, so we're getting heavy, lonely, small, being watched. So yes, this is my 4-year-old part, and I'm going to give you the little map of my own system here in a moment. Rotem has done a lot of work with me and hosted me a lot, so he knows my 4.
And read Dissociation Made Simple.
Dissociation Made Simple, yeah. So this is my 4. Through much of our adult life, we've referred to her as 4, although during an EMDR session many years ago, she said, you could call us Lucy if you want. So we sometimes call her Lucy. So this is my 4, largely as she exists in us today, not as she existed when we were chronologically 4. This image is what started all this with me, really exploring AI uses for system mapping here. So I was in an EMDR session earlier this year with my therapist. And in EMDR, we're a very mixed processor. Sometimes sessions for us are intensely somatic. Sometimes we do see things very visually. And at a certain point during the session, I won't get into the whole content of the session, it was as though 4 was looking directly at us. And this metaphor of the luggage, the baggage, has been something that's come up quite a bit in our EMDR session. In a new relationship that I'm exploring, my partner and I often use this metaphor of baggage. Like, oh yeah, we both have 50 pounds of Samsonite luggage we're always lugging around with us. And I think I had mentioned that, and we went with that at a certain point. And 4 in one of the EMDR past reports, what are you noticing now? 4 was looking at me saying, please, please, please don't make me carry that again. All of that baggage. And it represents history. It represents not that we haven't worked on it, but just the things that will always be there. And I was able to say to 4 as a response, you do not have to carry all of that again. I appreciate you being able to carry what you can right now. And it was from that exchange in an EMDR session that I saw very close to this image in my head. And it was a super profound session. I won't get into the whole details of how it resolved, other than my adult being able to have that interchange with her was just super impactful. And in the days after the session, that image would not leave me, but it was positive. It wasn't like a torture thing at all. It was just very much, because 4 is still doing a lot of her healing, especially about our relational trauma. It's still very much a work in process for her of all of our parts, right? And so, knowing Garrett, my technical advisor, who also has done some work with Rotem, I've seen some of the amazing images he's generated with AI over the last year. And so I almost kind of felt like I was cheating on my artistic side by saying, let me bring out one of these AI apps, because even though I can draw this symbolically, I wanted something that looked more real, if that made sense. And so I created this using an app called DaVinci, DAVINCI. And depending on where the flow goes, I don't have much recommendations here about the technical apps that you can be using for this. I mean, ChatGPT is the popular one. I actually find it very lacking for some image work. I really like DaVinci. A couple other of my friends in this world who have done system work. Let me see, the Magic Studio is another one that has come.
There's another one, Jamie, especially for visuals. It's called Midjourney. I used it. I have zero talent when it comes to, anything drawing, but I'm really interested in psychedelics. And, I have a webinar next week and I have a course, and it really helped me to develop psychedelic art. And I have to say, it feels good for a person who has no visual skills or visual art skills to generate something to put in text and then get this. And then you can iterate and change it if you want.
It took us, if you know anything about prompting AI apps for images, they'll bring back a lot of garbage or a lot of stuff that obviously isn't what you had in mind. So it took me probably about 20 tries of describing what I wanted, because that's how AI image works. And that could even be an art in using your words to describe the image. And so when I saw this one as an option, because I believe I prompted this with something like 4-year-old blonde girl looking lost, luggage, one big, one small. So I hid in a lot of the keywords. And when this returned, it was like, boom, like this is it. But it took me a lot of trial and error, even with the words and seeing images that were returned. And when I saw this, I was just absolutely overcome. And I shared it with Garrett, like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm finally on board with AI art, because this is not something I could have actually drawn myself. So if you've taken presentations with me before, you may have seen this slide, because I used this in the Dissociation Made Simple training. I used this for the webinar on parts that I ran here for EMDR Learning Community a while ago. My major parts in my car with me, because I use the car metaphor to describe my system, is we have Jamie the adult, who's the driver, and my major parts are 4, 9, and 19. And those parts largely formed at those ages to hold and help me go through what I was going through at those ages. And so in the past, when I've presented this, I've used this slide. Now, yes, this is what I chronologically looked like at 4, 9, and 18, 19. And I look at these pictures today, and what they largely represent our history. We could look at them, we could analyze them. You could probably tell that I grew up in the 80s by seeing a few of the images, right? But these don't really reflect how the parts exist in us now. Because we are someone where all of these parts have been along with us for our EMDR and our healing journey. And so when I saw that image of 4, it made me start to wonder, could I use AI to help me map my whole system for how I experience these parts now? So I feel that this slide is a lot more representational than this slide nowadays on how I describe my team and my system. So let's break this one down a little bit more, because we've already explained 4 and how this image came to be. And I am going to show you some alternate images of 4 that I generated too, in different moods that she might be in. All right, so this main image on top is Jamie. If you've heard me speak before, I've talked about this kind of shapeshift that happens between Dr. Jamie Marich and just Jamie, who's wearing the hoodie and really thinks a lot of this field is just so full of itself that why are we here doing this? But you know, Dr. Jamie, here I am with my microphone that I'm using. I'm dressed up. I'm in my more professional mode. That's kind of the superwoman part, if you will. And then there's just Jamie. And as an OSDD system, this adult 45-year-old body is the one who is driving the car at all times. But even she can shapeshift between, are we showing up more as Jamie? Are we showing up more as this like superwoman, Dr. Jamie? And the 3 other parts, 4, 9, and 19, are largely passengers in the car with us. And the metaphor that we like to use, they will make it very hard for us to drive if they're in distress. And of course, at other times in our life, particularly in 2016 when we re-entered treatment, we've been in very high distress. All of these parts have been along for the ride with us doing EMDR therapy. All of these parts have done their own share of EMDR targets themselves. So why wouldn't they change? And we're very much of the belief that you don't have to integrate in order to be well, that functional multiplicity is a real thing, that what we can work towards is more of a collaboration, a communication between the parts. So we represent that perspective that my parts never have to go away, but they're always going to be on board with us. And as a result, they can be dynamic and healing as well. So we'll talk a little bit more about 9. So this is 9. Again, this was us at chronological 9 with kind of the feather haircut / mullet that a lot of us had in the late 80s. And it was just a pretty miserable time for us in our life. And this is how we very much feel 9 now. Because 9, a little backstory here, is the part that we've traditionally associated. And even now, as we're talking, she's kind of like, watch how you talk about us. 9 is the part who's traditionally been associated with our self-destructive tendencies, because we had our first suicidal thoughts and flirtations at 9. We started self-injuring at 9. And the reason we chose this like rainbow plaid shirt for her is that in a lot of EMDR sessions we've had, we have seen her in this really horrible plaid shirt that our mother used to make us wear. And it represented kind of like, we have no choice. We have no bodily autonomy. This is just a prison, even wearing this piece of clothing. And so even in our EMDR sessions over the years, when we see 9, she's kind of evolved to wearing a plaid shirt, but it's one of our design. It's rainbow, it's pride, it's awesome. And the arms are akimbo, and she's wearing the sunglasses because in her healing, she still has that snarky quality. She still has that ability to tell us things like, Jamie, would you stop just being so positive and meditating all the time and just let yourself be sad? It's okay. So she doesn't have this tendency for destruction anymore. A lot of that has healed, but she still is very much like our internal badass that can still keep a cynical view of the world. But that's what helps us do a lot of this kind of speaking out that we're known for. She's awesome. They're all awesome, but we look at this and this very much more feels how 9 has evolved for us today. And then
I have to say, Jamie, I love the posture. I think the posture is saying a lot, right? Like standing like this with the sunglasses, you lost the 80s kind of haircut, and you're like, don't mess with me.
Yeah. And somebody even looked at it once and said, it looks like a little Janis Joplin. And I said, I'll take that as a compliment. I will really take that as a compliment. So 19 up here, I especially use the AI to prompt somebody with bleach blonde hair, because when we were kind of between the ages of 19 and 22, we were constantly dyeing our hair to try to find that right color for us. So we often had our hair very bright when we were that age chronologically, but that's how we still feel her inside. Like she's the one who represents our desires to see the world, our desires to be sensual, our desires to break out of this religious mold in which we were raised. And so, yeah, if you look at this here, she's in a village with flags. She's the one who really helped us to first see the world. And if you know anything about my story, for a lot of years, we did not listen to 19's wisdom because we associated her with our alcoholism, with our addiction. Because yeah, we also kind of crossed that line into alcoholic behavior when we were 19. But healing and EMDR has helped us to see, of course we did, because we were going through this huge adjustment of seeing that there was a bigger world out there. And then the unicorn here, we actually used AI to generate this. Since we use the car, right, to metaphor our system, this unicorn's like the hood ornament of the car. And just so you know, not all systems have a name. Not all dissociative systems use a name. I certainly tend to only use it with people who are in the know. I use Jamie or Dr. Jamie in the rest of my life. But this year I was teaching a course and talking about this idea that not all dissociative systems name themselves, but a lot of them do. And even as I was talking about that in the course, all of them kind of said in consensus, why don't you call us the unicorn system? And the unicorn is this archetype that we have long connected to since we were a kid as a mythical creature. If you know anything about queer sexuality, we very much identify as a unicorn. A lot of people have seen us kind of like as a unicorn professionally because we say a lot of things people won't say. And this is us. This is very much us when you look at this screen. So Rotem, you know me, you know us pretty well. I'm just wondering if I can get any other reflections from you about looking at this screen. And I see a few other friends or people I know are in the workshop as well. So if you want to type your reflections in the chat, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I love what you said, that these are not your parts as they're not representing accurate history. So your part as they were at that time, but what they represent now after doing a lot of work with them. And I can see how that can be a work in progress, right? Like that can be something that you, as your parts develop and, you know, get to know each other and become more adaptive in whatever way you want to call it, but getting, you know, healing, then you are, you know, you can update it with your work.
Yep. And I want to be clear, I'm not the first system to do this, because even when I started sharing this in the group I run for plural EMDR therapists, some folks are like, oh, I heard other systems have been doing this. So I know it's been done. But like a lot of things, I'm probably the first with kind of my stature who's getting this out there as like, yeah, this is something we can do. This is another creative step we can take with helping people system map. So on that token, I just want to share with you a few other images, and I really do want to open this up to discussion. So if you've ever tried using AI apps to generate art before, as I said, they're going to bring back several different types of images and several different types of descriptions. Some AI apps will work with an actual photograph. So you may upload a picture of yourself now, and you can type in the prompt, generate this person as a 9-year-old child riding a dragon. On ChatGPT now, you have to specify, I own this image, and give rights for it to be used. Some of the other apps, you may not need to do that. Again, I'm not so up on what all the different apps can allow you to do. I think this was DaVinci as well. I've had the most luck with DaVinci, with my style and my kind of proclivities. And this was just another image that I believe I typed in using my general description of 9 as I see her now. If you notice, the curly free hair and the sunglasses is a big motif here, the rainbow checkered shirt. And I asked her to be riding a rainbow colored dragon, because mythically we also connect with the archetype of the dragon. This is another rendering of 19. 19 was the one who wanted to go to film school, who wanted to explore more things artistically, but we, weren't allowed to. That was a big part of our story. So this is another rendering of 19 in a different style, because the nice thing about DaVinci I like is they have different categories of style. So you can do like Pixar style, animation style. This kind of looks like the style that the TV cartoon Archer is done in. You could do sacred art style. So you can imagine your prompts, enter them in, and get Renaissance art style returned back. And it's not to say the other apps can't do that, but what I like about DaVinci is they give you the ideas of the categories, whereas in ChatGPT you might, or others, you might have to type in the style of Renaissance art. So here is another rendering of 4. And this was based on an actual photograph of us. We have a little lamb stuffy that we've taken to conferences with us. People with systems tend to like our stuffies. It's just a thing, especially as comfort to these younger parts. And so these are 2 other images of 4 that we typed in with the actual image. DaVinci allows you to do that. Some of the other programs allow you to do that. I think these might have been ChatGPT though. Or no, the one on the right was DaVinci. The one on the left was ChatGPT. And yeah, the one on the right, this is very much what we looked like at 4, for sure. Kind of before that horrible picture I showed you when we were in that kind of church prison. That picture of me at actual 4 was from a church festival. And they had this game where you could put your children in an imaginal prison and have the prison warden babysit them. And if you wanted to get out of the church prison, then parents could donate money to the church. So a lot of symbology there, a lot of metaphor there. I'm going to be doing a blog on that. But yes, kind of before our life really got shitty at 4, this is very much how we saw ourselves. And this image on the right, which is or the left, which is much more cartoon style. And what I love about what they picked up on here is the actual picture that we gave ChatGPT to use. Our hair was highlighted magenta purple at that time, and they picked up on that little highlight thread. So with this image on the left, I want to give you an idea here of where you might be able to use AI as a start and then compensate or pay actual artists going forward. I would like to create some kind of animation with this rendering of 4 connected to my memoir that's releasing. Now, could GPT or could AI create animations? Probably. I know there's a lot of programs that are doing that now, but I would like, in my ethics, and to work with an actual human being on creating this animation, but using this as a starting place, because I think this is a very fun rendering of 4 as we see her, as we feel her, as we experience her. This is another 4 we played with. Rainbows, unicorns. This one's fun to me. This is a picture, an actual picture of us with one of our partners that we put in. And I have this 4-year-old part, they have a 6-year-old part. And I believe in the chat prompt, I put something like, can you render us both as 5-year-olds? And this is a picture that I look at sometimes when I just need to be reminded that we're still kind of navigating our relationship, knowing that we both have younger parts that are still healing.
So Jamie, as I'm watching this, I
Yep.
have a million thoughts and a million questions. So just to clarify, so this partner of yours, you did not know this partner when you were a kid, right? So
Correct.
So what the AI can do is take pictures of both of you as kids and put it together.
No, it wasn't even both of us as kids. The picture I gave AI was us as adults.
Oh, so AI created the version of you as kids.
Yep.
That is so interesting.
Yeah, this pose we're doing in the picture is a pose that I got of us in a picture, in an actual picture that we took together.
Yeah. And
yeah.
Another thought that I have is like, as you do your work with your parts and they develop, you can make slight changes. So you can take the same image and make slight changes, just giving the AI program you're using prompts and then make very slight changes. And then that will reflect the progress that you do in therapy.
That is a potential use as well. Yeah. I'm going to show you. I need to take it from my phone to the screen here though, because I talked to you about 9 as being like the little, the little rebel, the little spitfire, and how even when that same partner saw that rendering of 9, he said, oh my gosh, it looks like a little Janis Joplin. And I think one day, it was after I had done a workshop, and I said to the kind of plural group that I hang out with, not 9 was really unplugged today. 9 was like really in her element today. It was just super unplugged. And so somebody said, use AI to generate a picture of Jamie unplugged, which I thought was kind of fun. And so, yeah, that's what I'm about to show you next. It's how I took that same image of 9 and I put it in the chat GPT, or I don't know if I use chat GPT. I probably use DaVinci, because DaVinci is where I've had the greatest success. So I put this picture of 9. I'm opening it right now and I'll show you. I said, can you draw 9 as an artist playing a guitar? When I didn't tell ChatGPT 9, I just sent them the image. And this is what it turned up for me, for us. Now, she's playing left-handed. We're technically a right-handed guitar player. And I thought of asking the AI program I use to change it around. And inside, I kind of heard this, no, we like it. It's fine. So yeah, that's 9 unplugged. And for those of you who know us, like as trauma therapist rants and the person who's always kind of speaking out about things we don't like in the field, this is a lot of the part of us as she exists now that generates a lot of that. And, there are some who would see that as, oh my gosh, that's so immature. That's so not grown up. And it's like, we don't want to squash that out of us. We don't. No, nor do we believe we have to. I have done this now with a couple people I work with. I've done it with some other professionals who I mentor. I did mention that I run a group on Facebook for plural EMDR therapists. And if you are an EMDR therapist who identifies as plural in any way yourself, and you might want to take part in that group, I'm putting my direct email in the chat. We do screen the group pretty heavily just for safety and confidentiality. So emailing me and expressing your interest would be a first step. And yeah, a lot of friends who are in that group, it's up to them if any of them are here and want to self-disclose. We've been playing with AI in the last couple months now with, hey, this is how I would map my system. Some of us have shared them more publicly, other people have chosen to keep it privately. I will say with a lot of people that I mentor, when I show them my renderings, there's this, oh my gosh, I never thought about using AI to parts map. So let me go ahead and do that. And what is meant by a parts map? I've said this before when I've spoken, that I don't really subscribe to using any one model in treating or working with dissociative disorders. The previous webinar I did talked about that, but I do think it could make it easier for your client, their system, for you as the therapist to work if you do have some idea of a map or a list of how the different parts interact with each other, how they may be formed in the system. And you don't have to have a dissociative disorder to do parts work with people. I think we all know this. And in Dissociation Made Simple, in the Dissociation Made Simple flip chart, which is now officially out as of July 9th, it's still on the pre-order. And if you hang around to the end, you will get a coupon for this if you like. I do give some ideas for just using symbols. You can use circles and squares and triangles for parts mapping. For people who may be more artistically inclined, they may draw out a map, but even collage imagery can work great for parts mapping. There's a lot of things that are on the table for it.
All right. So Dr. Jamie Marich, thank you so much for your time.